Hey, welcome back to the Brand Reputation Crash Course. In this lesson, we're really going to set the stage for everything else that lies ahead by talking about your brand story and promise and the messaging that comes from that. If you imagine a strong brand as a solid, well constructed house, this lesson is going to be the foundation that the whole structure relies on. So let's start with a tale of two brands. These are obviously imaginary, but in each of these lessons, we're going to touch on a couple of case studies that bring these concepts into reality. So brand A has no clear brand story. And as a result of that, why would clients or customers choose brand A over a cheaper or more convenient alternative? There's nothing that pulls them emotionally towards brand A or keeps them there. And the same goes for their employees or talent. If I work for brand A and the only thing that makes me care about my job is that it pays my bills, well, as soon as I can find a job that pays better, I'm out of there. And finally, instead of a sturdy house with a strong foundation, brand A is like a cheap tent. One big gust of wind and it's going to go off a cliff. Without that loyalty, emotional resonance, or any kind of a strong, lasting relationship with your team and your clients, any kind of crisis, be it financial or logistical or reputational, puts the organization into existential risk. Now let's look at brand B. Brand B has a clear, consistent brand story that's been developed with purpose and woven into the culture of the organization. And as a result of that, their clients feel an emotional attachment to the brand. That means they're even willing to pay a little extra money or travel a little bit further to choose brand B over the alternatives. On top of that, their team comes to work each day feeling like they're doing something worthwhile, something that matters. And so even if they get offered a higher paying job, they're going to think long and hard about leaving a place where they feel good about working. And with that kind of loyalty and emotional commitment from their clients and their team, Brand B is in a strong position to deal with challenges that inevitably come along. And in fact, if the brand and the culture are strong enough, those challenges will actually make the organization stronger by bonding the team together and giving them an opportunity to demonstrate the strength of their collective character. So, how do you build a strong brand that sets you up to seize those advantages? Well, it starts with having a clearly defined mission, vision, and values. Your mission is the purpose of your organization, why it exists. What problem do you solve? What benefit do you bring to people's lives? Your vision speaks to where you're going. What kind of future do you want to create? When your employees put in their time, when your customers or investors put in their money, what is it that they're helping to build? And your values are the shared beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that guide you as a brand and as a team. So let's get into some examples to help flesh this out. Now, Patagonia here is one of my favorites. I think they have a really nicely laid out mission, vision, and values. Mission is to build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, and use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. Vision is a love of wild and beautiful places demands participation in the fight to save them and to help reverse the steep decline in the overall environmental health of our planet. And those values of environmentalism, transparency, quality, integrity, and utility. Another great example is Amazon. However you feel about some of their business practices and some of the personalities associated with the brand, I think this is a really strong statement of how they want to position that brand. So mission is to be Earth's most customer-centric company, where customers can find and discover anything they might want to buy online and endeavor to offer its customers the lowest possible prices. Vision is to build a place where people can come to find and discover anything they might want to buy online. And values are customer obsession, ownership, bias for action, long-term thinking, and innovation. And what I like about Amazon's values in particular is they actually go a little deeper and outline what those values mean in practical terms. And this is something you could actually hand out to your team as a concrete guide for how you expect to conduct themselves in their work as an ambassador, as a representative, as a participant in the brand of your organization. So now that we've covered mission, vision, and values, let's talk about the concept of a brand promise. And really, a brand and a promise in a lot of ways are the same thing. Your brand is simply the promise that you make to your audience. That includes clients, customers, employees, shareholders, your whole universe of stakeholders. But we all know that making a promise is only half of the equation. For a promise to work, to be powerful, you also have to live up to it. So what are the elements of a strong brand promise? One, it needs to convey a compelling benefit. Your brand needs to make a difference that matters. Two, it needs to be authentic and credible. Your audience needs to believe it. And three, and that's directly related, it needs to be delivered every single time. That's what it means to keep the promise. And when you don't deliver on the promise, you need to have a plan. You need to have a protocol in place for what you do to own that failure to live up to the promise and to make it right with the people that are affected. And that's something we'll get into in a lot of detail in this course. Now, truly effective brands that are built up over time don't even need words to tell their story because they make a promise that's achievable and they deliver on it again and again. They're not perfect, there's no brand that is, but through persistence and repetition and sheer longevity, they imprint themselves on our psyche and bring up a consistent set of attributes every time that we see them. So in each lesson of this course, we're going to ask my favorite question, which is what could go wrong? And in my career, that question has been the single most powerful tool for anticipating and addressing issues and preventing them from growing into crises. So as an example here, United Airlines has been using "Fly the Friendly Skies" as its tagline. That's the phrase that sums up your brand story since 1965. Now, I flew United a few weeks ago. I actually had a pretty good experience, but let's be honest, the bar for air travel these days is set fairly low. But regardless, I love this example of the gap between brand promise and reality that can emerge. So in 2017, on a flight that was overbooked, United asked for volunteers to agree to take a later flight. And a medical doctor named David Dow on that flight initially volunteered to be one of those people, but then tried to backtrack when he learned that the next available flight wouldn't get him home in time for his work commitments. And the dispute escalated to the point where Dr. Dow was filmed by other passengers being forcibly dragged off the airplane by security personnel and being injured on an armrest in the process and actually drawing blood. Now, to its credit, United was fairly quick to apologize for the incident and compensate Dr. Dow for his experience. But this is a great illustration of how your brand promise is only as good as your team's ability to deliver on it, not just when things are good and normal and smooth, but also when things get tough. So let's wrap up with some action items as you look to define your mission, vision, and values and build your brand promise on top of that. You need to start by engaging your stakeholders, especially your team and then your clients or customers. The brand is only going to be credible if it's based on their perceptions and their aspirations and what they value. You want to be clear and concise so there's no room for doubt or ambiguity about where you stand. You want to make it inspiring, make it rise above the everyday, and give your organization something to reach for. You need to be consistent, because remember, a promise is only as good as the effort that you put into keeping it. And you need to regularly review, revisit, and update your brand story as your organization, your stakeholders, and the wider world develop and evolve and change. So that's it for brand story and promise. When you're ready, head on over to our next lesson on reputation monitoring.